asigi anisuba session asigi chairperson oibigadaba lamdam asigi oidongna eminent scholar oina mayamna sakhangnariba Dr. Gurucharan Singh loinana tongan ba paper reader sing mingoina panjarbada Mehdi Hassan Chaudhary Usarani Sharma K.A. Semapati Singh amasung Mangola Laishram hairiba paper reader sing asina resource person sing asina tongan ba hiramda paper sing pabigani
ahanbada mayambu kuramjari loina ngasigi symposium ki ani suba technical session jigi thauram mayamdagi ayala lojaraga atuba matamda haujaragani adugu asigumba Sahitya Academy ga Manipuri Department G.C College ke khutsamnaraga pangthokhre thauram asida lengbirakliba aiba aibi ahalamam scholarship khudumako tawmel khamba uchari maramdi asigumba college sigi thauram asida barton nimantron kachabada harauna jati sigi loan sigi damak nungsibiduna lengbirakuna Sagatkiba amasung haiba thauram asida tijin khomjinduna paper khara thauram tawjarakliba aigi nungsijarabi scholarship na pabigadoba paper se thawai hakchang yauna amasung mayamna cooperation pibiduna tabiduna amasung masigi awat apado aroiba matamda menjenbinaba ai chodamaki mayam khomda khudongchaba pijagani adubu symposiumna magi chapchaba seminar tawna nainabadumaki natabanina hairiba paper singsida karigumba awatpa nataga chita hoba nanta hoba lairagadi madu benkat piraknabagidamata khangnairaba scholarship dasu ai madu sodimaki khudongchaba amasung ai tawjagani adu mayam ayaba lojaraga hairiba symposium se haunumat tawjarage yam phajagrabani biographical literature in Manipuri punsi-warigi Sahitya haibase punsi-warigi Sahitya haibase tasengna akoina hana ujaramliba Sahitya da upanyas wareng saireng asigumba sida akoina Sahitya na khalamni adubu haujikti matang Sahitya gi magi lambon asida konjalai base aduki mate jamna konjale aina rang jimaksu koi wajamna aingonda biography nataba biogeographical literature haibama kak lai di hamapa sira isi gaudana masi bhogol ke mari di leramdi jai kainaina hai adubu aina jengeru matumda grocery jengeru matumda biogeographical literature kaina leje masi soi mathamda waja masi nainhanjani masi yam phajaramba kainoma topic ama oirama sari biogeographical literature haise masi tasengna akoi gi karino akoi gi masi ina pujarapani madu yam phajagraba magi kainose terminology se mana hairi base and ecological and evolutionary approach literature hai aina sunje da ado mathanda koi G.C College ki ai department ai thamjari akoi Sahitya Academy da so ai hagachari ojana nuksibiduna tamna loikhra bawda da amuktanga ꯑꯗꯨꯗꯤ ꯈꯨꯗꯣꯡꯆꯥꯕꯗ ꯄꯤꯕꯤꯌꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯅ ꯑꯩ ꯍꯣꯠꯅꯖꯔꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯑꯩ ꯍꯧꯅꯕ ꯇꯧꯖꯔꯒꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯑꯍꯥꯟꯕꯗ ꯂꯩꯔꯤꯕꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯅꯨꯡꯁꯤꯖꯔꯕ ꯏꯆꯥꯁꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯌꯥꯏ ꯏꯅꯥꯎꯁꯨ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯌꯥꯏ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯁꯤꯕ ꯏꯅꯥꯎꯅꯤ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯏꯪꯒ꯭ꯔꯦꯖꯤ ꯗꯤꯄꯥꯔꯠꯃꯦꯟꯒꯤꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯣꯂꯦꯖ ꯑꯁꯤꯗ ꯗꯤꯄꯥꯔꯠꯃꯦꯟ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔꯒꯁꯨ ꯏꯪꯒ꯭ꯔꯦꯖꯤ ꯗꯤꯄꯥꯔꯠꯃꯦꯟꯗ ꯑꯃꯁꯨꯡ ꯍꯤꯟꯗꯤ ꯗꯤꯄꯥꯔꯠꯃꯦꯟꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔꯤ इरोन तिनावा एकोइना कैप्चर तौदुना खुदोंचाबा लौदुना लेरिबसे हिंदी गे चेन्ना मजु लेरि अदुगै इंग्रजी दा एकोइ मेहदी हसन लेरि असिना कोइ मणिपुरी त नतना हिंदी मणिपुरी इंग्रजी से एकोइ मणिपुरी साहित्य की खोंजेन असिदा पुन्ना सेमिनबगी यामना थोमाना चमिनबा इचै इनाउ मक्तनी अदु एकोइ दिली कइनोसी एकोइ मेदी आसान से मादी एकाडमी से मा दिल्ली की तौजरपनी अदु यामना थिजन कोनिबा यामना हई सिंजबा अंगांगनी अदु माकी पेपर से मयामना पुनिजना ताबिउ वाइना आइना मखोय मरी की बहुत सिलगा मयामना नोलचरी अदु आई आहान बदा कौथोचगे मेदी हसन की पेपर पाबिनबरी दमकता नकोयना पेपर सिंदो खराबतन जेरोक्स तौरागा फरगा मांग जेलमगा दिखाबा खरगा जेलोना खरगा मामम जिबि आयोनो जो मंजिबा तो जेलोना नोगी दुसु लोना बिरो मावना बिरो नंदी की ओनो जेलो तो अनु दिया कोई दिन तापा बिरो आयोनो जो बिरोना तारदि अनु रमि काउथोबि ममांग जो काउबि मनोंदा ओरंदी तानेवा
Thank you, sir. Kurumjai, ma'am. Aiki paper, asiki title, the cartographies of the self, an overview of life writing. English to ina pangthokhre. I'll be reading out my paper in English, even though the content relates to Manipuri literature. The title of my paper is Cartographies of the Self, an overview of life writing. So what I'm primarily going to do in this paper is to present a brief overview, a historical overview of autobiographical, biographical, and other literatures that lays a premium on life or life writing. So primarily I'm going to first look at the Western European cultural tradition of life writing, and then I'll come to the context of India and how life writing, various forms of life writing took birth in India since the ancient times. Thereafter, I'll put specific emphasis briefly on the significance and the practice of life writing in Manipuri literature. This is a very brief outline of the paper. Life writing is an ancient cultural practice. The oldest avatars of this literary genre were the oration in funerals, songs of praise and mourning, inscriptions on monuments, etc. Life writing as a term was first recorded in the 18th century. However, the term earned wide academic acceptance only in the 1980s. This umbrella term, life writing, is derived from two Greek words, bios meaning life and graphia meaning writing. And it is said that the term life writing was first used in the contemporary sense by an English female novelist named Virginia Woolf in her essay called A Sketch of the Past. The genre refers to a wide range of literary forms that document people's lives and selves. As an alternative name, the term with a slash, auto/biography, is also used to signify this genre called life writing. Contemporary studies in life writing include not only biography, autobiography, memoir, travel writing, even letters or personal or subjective essays, but also like as our convener sir had also mentioned, it also includes other modes of documenting the life, like obituary, writs, wills, written anecdotes, even court proceedings, marginalia, that is the writings outside the text. It could be lyric poems or historical writings, and very interestingly, it also involves contemporary digital forms of the documentation of life, like blogs, tweets, Facebook posts, and also in Instagram posts. So this is a much wider definition to this genre called life writing. One advantage of this term is that it enables other forms that would in general be considered as marginal to also be studied as an important aspect of literature. Now, different forms of fiction based on biography and autobiography, that is biographical fiction and autobiographical fiction, as also poetry, testimony, and illness narratives. Illness narratives are those narratives which document the life of the sick person. Among others, may be studied under life writing. Life writing is predicated upon the self. However, feminist scholars have problematized this concept of self and selfhood, because self is a relational category. It is gendered. The self of the male might be different from the self of the female author. Therefore, it is essential for us to keep in mind the fact that selves are gendered. Thus, in the African American author Audre Lorde, she has a piece of life writing, a very popular one called Jami. As also in another instance, in Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing, the autobiographical self is delineated, is developed, not merely in terms of the self of the authors, but in terms of a larger community. So the identity of the authors are understood in terms of the society, not in terms of the private self, which is a very important aspect of life writing. The increasing engagement with life writing was promoted by what is known as the memoir boom, which began in the 1960s in America. The boom developed in the following decades of 1980s and 90s, when life writing was expanded through the writings of common people. Now, so what happens in the second half of the 20th century is there is indeed a democratization in the arena of life writing, because if we look at classical life writing, classical biographies and autobiographies, we see that these biographies or autobiographies were written about great men, about those in power. So what we have in the latter part of the 20th century is a transformation, is a shift from that focus upon the great man's life to a focus on the common man's life, which is a very significant contribution of life writing. By the 1980s, life writing emerged as an important domain of academic research and attracted critical attention in various departments, not merely in the literature or cultural studies department, but also in departments of political science, history, anthropology, and sociology. The emergence, one very significant aspect in our study of life writing is the emergence of the social media in the beginning of the new millennium, because social media has not only revolutionized life writing, but also it has imparted a great democratic sensibility to life writing. So beginning from the beginning from the 1950s and 60s to the end of the century and the beginning of the new millennium, we have a very drastic change in our understanding of what modes, what subgenres may constitute life writing. So that now people, researchers and scholars in this discipline also take into account the writings that are published or posted in the social media. Now, today life writing therefore is not only practiced by prominent individuals, but also by those people, common people who have access to the internet and social media. Indeed, in recent times, life writing has become a truly ubiquitous phenomena and a cultural practice. In a very important study on life writing, specifically on autobiography by two authors, Sidney Smith and Julia Watson, they have drawn an interesting distinction between the terms life writing on the one hand, life narrative on the other, and autobiography on the other side. They define life writing, and I quote, as a general term for writing of diverse kinds that takes a life as the subject. Such writings can be biographical, novelistic, historical, or an explicit self-reference to the writer, unquote. They interpret life narrative, and I quote, as a somewhat narrower term that includes many kinds of self-referential writing, including autobiography. So they designate life writing as a broader umbrella, generic term. But life narrative is given a new meaning in their work, and they define life narrative as a kind of self-referential writing that includes autobiography. Now, in terms of autobiography, they view this genre as a subset of life narrative, as I have just said, designating a particular practice of life narrative that emerged in the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment is a very important trope in the study of the autobiography or life writing in general, because it is believed that the focus on the self, from a Western European perspective, the focus on the self emerged through the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, it glorified the human self that struggles against unknown and powerful circumstances and entities. So enlightenment is an important concept that we usually have to keep in mind in studying life writing. Of course, there are criticisms to this idea of the Enlightenment being the engine behind the proliferation of life writing in the 18th century, beginning from the 18th century, because instances of life writing also emerged in non-European, non-Western places, for example in India, which we will look at in the later part of my paper. Now, biography, as we know it, is the written account of someone's life, which focuses on events, characters, and individuality of the subject. That is the person about whom the biographical narrative is. Now, John Dryden very famously defined biography as the history of particular man's lives. Biography is different from history. It is also different from fiction. Also, it is different from autobiography with its unique traits. Now, early models of the genre of biography includes Plato's account of his master Socrates, accounts of Greek historians like Herodotus, and the account of Plutarch called Parallel Lives of the Greeks and Romans, among others. European biography of the Middle Ages was marked by the recording of the saint's life or hagiography. Of course, there are other traditions of biography, for example, in the Middle East, where the biographers used to record the life of Islamic figures like Prophet Muhammad, among others. Now, of course, this tradition of biography continues, and in the context of the English biography, the names of Samuel Johnson and James Boswell are very important, because Samuel Johnson wrote a biography called Lives of the Poets, which was a revolutionary literary exercise actually, while James Boswell wrote Life of Samuel Johnson later on. Of course, what is significant for us to understand is that there is a very unique practice in biography known as the Dictionary of Biography. For example, in England, it was initiated by Leslie Stephen. Of course, in India as well, we have an instance of the Dictionary of Biography, which is a very brief exercise in biography. Now, one very important text that we need to take care of while discussing biography is the publication in the first part of the 20th century, especially, exactly to be precise, in the year 1918. Leslie Stephens, in the year 18, Lytton Starkey had published a very significant book, the title of which is Eminent Victorians. Now, that book is significant, so much so that critics and scholars of biography say that with the publication of Starkey's Eminent Victorians, a new paradigm emerged in biography. It was so because Starkey applied a very ironic, a very irreverential mode in his study of 4 Victorian personalities. Before Starkey, whenever biographies used to be written, especially in the Victorian period, the self, the subject, or the character upon whom the biographies used to be written were looked up to. They were venerated because they were great men, and there was no scope or room for criticism of such great men. What Starkey does is he brings in a very ironic, irreverential, or if you like, you could say disrespectful tone in the analyzing of great men. Disrespectful in the sense of being critical of the subject. So this is one very important aspect. Now, the autobiography, as we all know, is a person's own account of his or her life. It is different from a private record like the diary or the journal, because the diary or the journal is not meant for public consumption. It is not meant for other peoples to read, whereas the autobiography is specifically written for a wider readership. That is one important distinction. Now, the first full-length instance of the autobiography comes from the 4th century in the form of Saint Augustine's autobiography called Confessions, which is indeed a very passionate account of his life, which culminates in his conversion to Christianity. So Saint Augustine's Confessions is a classic in the study of autobiography. Of course, the religious element, the spiritual element predominates in the text. But even before these writers of lyric poetry like Pindar and Sappho and historians, as I have said, like Herodotus, had already laid their hands in this genre. Now, late medieval examples include John Bunyan's Grace Abounding, which is again a very interesting autobiography. The autobiography flowered under the impact of humanism of the Enlightenment. Of course, because of the focus on the self. Now I skip a few parts of my paper. Other important instances of the biography, for example, autobiography from the 18th century includes Benjamin Franklin's autobiography published in 1791, Rousseau's Confessions, 1782. Also, from the 19th century America, we have a very interesting example of autobiography called Narratives of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, published in the year 1845, a very significant autobiographical text. In the 20th century, we have interesting examples like the Diary of a Young Girl, which is primarily a memoir by Anne Frank, published in 1947. We also have the autobiography of Malcolm X by Malcolm X in the 20th century. Also, Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, published in the year 1994. So, what we see of the autobiography from this very brief overview is its popularity in the 20th century, in the latter part of the 20th century, which continues to the following century, that is this century as well. Now, I'll conclude this section of the discussion on autobiography and biography as primary instances of life writing by pointing out to a very interesting subgenre of the autobiography called the autobiographical essay or the personal essay, which mixes elements of both the autobiography and the essay. And very interesting examples of that include George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant, published in 1936. So this is a very interesting instance, and I think such instances are also found in the regional Bhasha literatures of India, of instances of the autobiographical essay. Now, I would like to now come to the context of India in our discussion of life writing. Now, it has been posited that in ancient India there was a demarcation between the private and the public domains, where speaking about the self or writing the self was not encouraged. This contributed to the dearth of life writing during the period. In fact, according to the eminent Indian scholar G.C Devi, due to the stratifying character of Indian society, which divides human life into ashramas and society into varnas, I quote, "The individual has always remained less privileged in it than the community." So the argument is this, that in the Indian context, the individual, the society is the privileged factor rather than the self. Therefore, such scholars argue that the scarcity of life writing, instances of life writing in early India can be attributed to these conditions of ancient India. But of course, however, these views have been reimagined and rethought by other scholars. I'll give you one very important example. The volume called Telling Lives in India, Biography, Autobiography and Life History, published in the year 2004 and edited by a very significant historian, or if you want, literary historian, David Arnold, and the other is Stuart Blackburn. They discuss life writing through the phrase life histories, and they counter the perception that they counter the perception that there is a stratification or division of the self, of the private self, in the private domain and in the public domain. So this anthology, what this anthology of essays does is the contributors of this anthology posit that collectivity and individuality interact and negotiate between themselves in the Indian context. So the idea is this, that both collectivity and individuality are traits of the Indian social context. Now, life history portrays not only the individual life but also of the society, and this is very true in the context of the Indian society. Now, very interestingly, the practice of life writing in the Indian context begins with the voices of the female, female voices. The earliest form of life histories in India, originating in the 5th century BC, was written by Buddhist nuns called Theris. The song of the Theris were called Theri Gathas, which were primarily descriptions in poetry of the lives of the Theris. It was only in the 1st century BC that these songs were written down, before which the songs were circulated orally. Following this, of course, we have the earliest Indian epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, which contains biographical literary strains. So in our study of life writing in India, we could also consider the biographical strains that are evident in the Indian epics. Then we have the Jataka tales, which describe the multiple lives of the Buddha and his incarnations. Of course, in the 7th century, we have Harsha Charitra, which is a biography of Emperor Harsha by Banabhatta. Of course, however, the predominant mode of life writing during the period was hagiography, that is the life of saints. Now, such hagiographies existed both in poetry as well as prose. Nevertheless, there was minimal space for the development of the character or subject in the hagiographies, because life was not in the hands of the people, of the subjects. Rather, life was a function of the divine power. So in such hagiographies, there is not much character development, if you want to say. Okay, another important aspect of life writing we find in the devotional literature or bhakti literature of Bashava, Meera, Chaitanya, Amir Khushru, Tukaram, Tulsidas, Kabir, etc. This literature also is a very important sub-genre of life writing in the Indian context. Now, in the medieval India, one important milestone happened with the coming of the Mughals, because the Mughal emperors wrote about their own lives. For example, you have the Babur Nama, the Humayun Nama, the Akbar Nama, among others. Of course, in the 18th and 19th century, we have a very colonial setting, and colonialism had a very important impact on the way in which life writing was being written in India. So there was an increased and predominant focus on the self in the 19th century. If you come to the 20th century, you have instances of Mahatma Gandhi's my experiments with truth, right? The story of my experiment with truth, Jawaharlal Nehru's and autobiography. Now, what is interesting about autobiographies by Gandhi and Nehru is the fact that in these autobiographies, the narration is not just of the private self. The narration is not just about the selves of the selves of the autobiographer, in this case Gandhi and Nehru, but the narration is also that of the nation. So the narration of the self as well as the nation are fused together in the early biographies of the 20th century. This tradition, of course, is carried on. For paucity of time, I'm not looking into that. But I come to the last part of my presentation, which is a focus on the Bhasa literatures with special reference to Manipuri literature. Now, in the field of Manipuri literature, an interesting mode of life writing emerged in the medieval period, which the literary historian C.H. Manihar Singh calls historical biography. Two historical biographies were composed to commemorate the life and heroic accomplishments of the king of Manipur, Haiba or Garib Nawaz. Samsok Ngamba, narrating the king's conquest of a part of Burma, and believed to be written by Laisram Aroy and Yunam Atibar, and Takhir Ngamba, which documents the king's conquest of the Tripuris, are the two texts. These historical biographies construct the image of the king as fierce, courageous, and generous at the same time, and lend an epic proportion to their stature. So there is a certain objective behind the composition of these historical biographies. Towards the close of the 18th century, Navachandra Wangkhai, Haricharan Thaunapaton, and Wahemba Madhavan wrote Chingthang Khomba Maharaj Gangachakpa on the king Vaidachandra's pilgrimage to Navadip. This text participates in history, biography, and travel writing as well, where the author endeavors to canonize the subject. To canonize the subject implies the authors are trying to transform the king into a godlike figure, into a figure of a saint. So these are very important studies in life writing, I think. In Samu Phaba Amasung Sri Govinda Nirupan, Khemachandra Singh portrays the king, I quote, as divinely gifted and marked out for instilling the faith of Krishna in the heart of the Manipuris. So this period is significant because you have the influence of Hinduism by this time in Manipur, and therefore in the historical biographies that were written, not just words, Sanskritic words are incorporated, but also a certain style, Sanskritic Hinduized style, is also being adopted by the writers of the historical biography, also predominantly seen in their objective to transform the kings, the monarch, into saint-like figures or god-like figures. Now, there are three interesting instances of the genre called Awangamba, Gambir Singh Nongaba, and Khahi Ngamba, Khahi as in Khasis. The life and heroism of the youngest son of Maharaja Bhagyachandra, that is Gambir Singh, are documented in this text. Of course, another very interesting text occurs towards the end of this period, Chandrakirti Jila Changba, which records Maharaj Chandrakirti's conference in 1876 with the Governor General of Colonial India, Lord Brooks, in a yacht in the river Barak in Silchar, which was Silchar was locally known as Jila, so it's Jila Changba in the title. It is said that henceforth a very important text, Chandrakirti's venture to Cachar, to Silchar specifically, is a very important text because after his exploits in this conference, according to C.H. Manihar Singh, the Maharaj came to be addressed as Ishvara, the God incarnate. So all of these historical biographies have a very pronounced objective, that is to place the monarch to the very high divine pedestals. The The instance of Manipuri life writing discussed here share certain threads of the life writing in pre-modern India. The historical, the political, and the religious trajectories come together in this text, Manipuri text of the medieval period, in order to construct the image of the sovereign in superlative terms. Various genres like hagiography, travel writing, epic, and biography come together, permeate in this text to portray the self of the sovereign as divine and heroic. I conclude my paper with a mention of modern instances of the life writing in the Manipuri literary scene. Early instances of life writing in the modern period of Manipuri literature include Pramodini Devi's Nuja Fidam, which according to C.H. Manihar Singh was published in 1928. Elsewhere, I think it is written differently. Hizam Irabot's Lokmanya Tilak, published in 1933 in the second volume of Lalit Manjuri Patrika. C.H. Pishak Singh's Bharat Ki Sadat Singh and Chandradhwaj Singh's Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri are early instances. Other publications include Chatradhari Soyam's Irabot, R.K. Sanahal's Ved Tikendrajit, L. Ibungohal Singh's Jivan Charit, Dwijamani Dev Sarma's Aigi punsi-warigi A. Miniketan's punsi-warigi Saktam, L. Iboyaima's Irabot, A. Biren's Ningsing Wari, M. Tombi's Saktam Macha Singh, Babudon Singh's Aigi Punsi, Nongmaithem Pahari's Aigi Diary Dagi, and of course the very interesting and popular M.K. Binodini's Churachand Maharaj Ki Imung Manu, among others. Thank you.
Thakchari, mayamna ayaba pikibaduna aisu yamna strict tawjadre ado matamdu leibanina akoi asum taminasi ado matamdu adum minute 15 pibani adubu mahakna minute 30 amwa hapchunna minute 30 to tum lawgare waro bile khanse ado yamna phajagare malem gi oina akoi autobiography amasum biography dagi sum mayam se akoi khangboda kanaba yamna hapchule ado loina loina angan matamda Manipuri Sahitya da leramba biography no chingba autobiography no chingba hapchule adubu aina masada mendi dama gatang et ningbati akoi gi Sahitya Academy na Sahitya Academy na who's who and phomi basa masiju akoi gi autobiography gi manunda machintan pandira magadi
Records of Indian literature.
Indian literature da ado who's who and akoi gi Sahitya Academy na matam kuina da phom na lai adu lona lona na who's who in America ina maduna pandira magadi the paper se aduka khatang rum lawdra ina khalli anyway ado supplement ni ado soide maki matam da adu gumba rum lawba paper mo kani abdi thada budu sam thamjari thagachari nadi hasan yamna wana thidna sigumba komjol pagi thawrumse arai bedi nate ado thagachari mathanga agi num sinjarabi ichan ako ke Dr. Usarani Sharma mase ako ke Janata College ki Manipuri di head ni ki master na ako Manipuri University ki taljarapani yamna dynamic oiba ichan ni na pabigato risya asang Manipuri ki punsi-warigi Sahitya autobiographical literature oina naba haiba hiro masida ichan Usarani na nabi binota ichan bu Thokchom
Sahitya Academy amasung Department of Manipuri Gurucharan College ani punna sin lang di ba sin kudia masigi academician gi siya ki phambam da lengsin bi ba ai gi si ba wada bu ai ko loina na paper reader sing ikai na bauchari loina na man da lengsin bi ba wada sing angui sing na ai na nuluteri ai introduction na si khara tentak na ai ꯂꯧꯈꯠꯆꯒꯦ ꯑꯩꯒꯤ ꯉꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯁꯤꯝꯄꯣꯖꯤꯌꯝ ꯑꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯇꯣꯄꯤꯛꯇꯤ ꯑꯁꯥꯡꯕ ꯃꯤꯅꯀꯦꯇꯟꯒꯤ ꯄꯨꯟꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯁꯛꯇꯝꯕꯨ ꯑꯣꯇꯣꯕꯥꯏꯑꯣꯒ꯭ꯔꯥꯐꯤꯀꯦꯜ ꯂꯤꯇꯔꯦꯆꯔ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯅꯩꯅꯕ ꯑꯣꯇꯣꯕꯥꯏꯑꯣꯒ꯭ꯔꯥꯐꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯋꯥꯍꯩꯁꯤ ꯒ꯭रीक लोनꯒꯤ स्टेम्स हाइबसिदगी होरकनी मसीगी अर्थना सेल्फ लाइफ एंड राइट हाइबदी इसागी पुंसीबु इथोकवा हाइबसिनी इसागी पुंसीगी मनमदा सुगाइना इदुना मियामदा लाथोकनी अखोइना मसीबु मसाना नत्रगा इसाना इबा पुंसी वारिगी कुई अदुबनी हाइना खंगनबा जाय सेंट अगस्टाइन ऑफ हिप्पोगी अहन बलाइरी कन्फेशन हाइबसिदा मतौ करमना ख्रिस्तान लाइनिंगदा माइ कोनसिलपगे हाइबदु मचा ताना अमाबी मपुंग फाना इरखी हौजिक फावदा खुई असिबु मियामना मपुंग फारबा ऑटोबायोग्राफी अमनी हाइना लौनरी खुई मखल असि ऐ बगी पुंसीदा थेंगनरकबा हौदो वाथोकना वाखलगी कोनफैनुंगदा काममदना नैदुना लेरकलबा पुनमक तमथोकलगे खंदुना मसाबुना मसागी मथौ लिंगमदा पनबा जाबो ओतोबा मसाबुना मसामकी मरमदा इजब खुइनी जॉन बानियान की खुई लौदुना नत्रगा आई बसिंगना मसागी मथौ लिंगमबदा पनबा जाबा ऑटोबायोग्राफी खरदी ग्रेस अबाउंडिंग द चीफ ऑफ सिनर विलियम वासवर्थ की प्रेलूड हाइबसिनी वर्ड्सवर्थ मसामगना होनजबदगी हंगलखिबा लौसिंग लोचत अमदी मरु ओइबसिंग खंगलगा कुसेंगी ओइबा खर हाचिलगा निंगसिंगलगा दी प्रेलूड हाइबा लाइरगसी किबनी अदुगा ऑटोबायोग्राफीबु जेनरमा ओहेलपसी लाइरगसी दगिनी हाइना लौनै अमरमदा सैरेंग लाइरगसीबु इंटरनल इपिक नि हाइना लौनै पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू की लेटर्स from a father to his daughter haiba autobiography asi angangi saita oina su masak naiba lairikni Mahatma Gandhi ki the story of my experiment with truth haiba autobiography asi su masak naiba punsi wari naina longnei Manipuri Sahitya da masana iba punsi wari gi Sahitya si unsuba chahicha gi athengba da oina thoraki मसीदा जीवन चरित कौबा मसागी पुंसी वारी अमा लाइरेन मयुम इबुंग महल सिंगोना इदुना थमलमलबा मतुंगदा मचा इबुंग हेमांगो सिंगोना मपाबुंग लेखिद्रबा मतुंगदा खरा हाप्तो फासिन तौदुना फोंगिबगी वारोन जीवन चरित की वाई खरदंग हाइबसिदा फोंगोकी लाइरगसी इचम जंबा माकी पुंसीदा थेंगनखिबसिंग अदु मियामदा पौदमबनी मसाना इबा पुंसी वारी हाइबा कला असिबु जामना खंगना इखिबा मानदे हाइना डॉक्टर इबो हनबी थोकचोम इबो हनबी सिंगना मणिपुरी दा punsi-warigi Sahitya हाइबसिदा मोटबिरी अदुम ओइनमक अनौबा मणिपुर अमा सेंगलकपदा चावरबा थौतांग लौखिबा मणिपुर की BABL की मसक अमा ओइना हुनना पकोनबनी हाइना लौबदाय मणिपुरी साहित्य की ओइनदी मांजिल थाबा लाइरिकनी जीवन चरित हाइना मिंथोनबा लाइरिकसी पुथोक्रबा मतुंगदा मसा मबु सेंगबा कुचु मोंरोक मोबा चंदोन जवाथिन बद पक्चबा असांगबा मिनगंदन सिंहना पुंसीगी सक्तम लारोन अमा अमसु अनि हाइना मिंथोनदुना मसागी पुंसी सक्तम खरदंगु मियाम मांगदा उन्ननबा होनरई पुंसीगी सक्तम लारोन नमदा मतंग तरा तरेट खजावी मसागी इमुंग मनुंगी अमदी इतिहास की ओइबा थौदोक कया मनुंगी वारी जावी मसीदा एबना पोकपकुम लिसिंग मचापन तरु की ममांग चंद्रकीर्ति महाराज की मतमदगिना मसागी चही तरुक तरेट फावबदली पुंसीगी सक्तम लारोन अनि हाइबसिदा मतंग निपान जावी मसीदा एबना पाखंग फारकवा मियाई चलकपा अमदी अहल ओइरकपा मतमदा हकथेंग नखिबा मरु ओइबा थौदोकसिंग मपुंग फाना लाइरिकसी दो उबा फंगदे असांगबम मिनाकेतनगी पुंसीगी सक्तम हाइबा लाइरिकसी जाम ममल जामनबा लाइरिकनी महा मसाना मसागी पुंसी सक्तम अमा पीनबा होनबता नतना mahangna popa matang isama di mawong mataw Manipur ki itihas amadi sanskriti ki maru oiba masak kaya marum sujawi punsi saktam laron amagi wahaw haiba sida punsi-warigi asi ibagi matangda asungna pali micam ni aisu lairu banati aigi tongan ba laibag ama lairoi khangi kanamata aigi punsi saktam jekpagi awagam lawina ba isana su jekning lude jeklam ge su khalude khangi maring marangani kari thoktuna khangi haina gani nongnabam ama oibadi soira roi khangi isana munna aduda ikut phaduna jektaba jade haiba gumba dabi amana kan khibna isana isagi ikang khangna jeklam da matare lamayani mayamba manau marum mapija singa awanu ngai wari watai sanabada makoi ayamana matul tarapada pamui tumin mutkiba odagi saktam thambiramu lada amatang aikoi chu penege tungna su phangjau chanu mai masingda masak ningthina naiba laiba ki mayon phamba singna su kitpu hena luna tawagum ta kogum tawi lamayum asumna mayamna pungning thogat pibadagi punsi saktam goba autobiography asi inabagi ihul pungning da phaurak kibani haibasini ani suba matang punsi sairang ba haibasida nawa walingi punsi ningsing latuna mangi taibang amada chung phanduna sanakiba jagoi sakiba isai sakhiba punna ningsing latuna mitki pita kiba matangbu asa bang minaketan singana seleng wala kuthare ahum suba matang popam haibasida ai bagi popam pari puri mai masing tamlakpa Manipur institution ningkatpa school asida jusna moi dakta Chaudhuri headmaster na ki lamding makada kongrala pam lalari sarma ga thabak tawinaba tayo lamagi manungda class kuntra dagi tatana class lawrabasu lalari sarma gi Russian ba wani na masada soktan balendaba asigumba wari singsina aikoi bisu saruk jali mari suba matang ipa popo ipu haibasida ai bagi panthau popam mapu kongjom landa subedar oikhiba kongjom lan mai thiraba matungda British sarkarna andama ba loi gimia loi raba matungda ahaloi na Manipurda halakiba matang oibana wari lili sang laba itihas ki tangkakta khwaidagi laibak thiba chahi lising ama chanipan mabudra mathoida laibaki mairong jakiba miyamna jamna nungsina luna chana tawba macha singbu ngakta thori kongoi haptuna miha thina hakiba sok tarik na chingma ningthi jana thari loinana laibaki ningthau amadi angam mathau kayagi chahi 13 amadi chahi 15 gi phatok takiba miyoi singi mingna chingba jamna kumna palli wari gi makha tarakpada mapubok asangbam hongbagi thotok pamating magun amadi masana sigadaba numipu makut thestuna paba ngambagi wari liri mga suba matang ay bupok iba haiba matang asida ay bagi panthau jibon mapuwoki ahan mamata oy banakena luna chui kala sanskrit thawai dawi miyam na sunungsi nungai dai pana pobla basu masadi punsi chupada madamo yi tubla bakajunda chaina ama ipuda pubagum ama oiki apopa leina lukra bisingda chalaba mamagi amadi matal manau apisak singi khanduna ai bana school tamba tokna mamagi tahi mari manga kanagi mateng jautna jum lem na bohonaki diamond chatpa mapagi macha woduna lairit phana hairu rabasu thaba inghang phangide haiduna pawdamli dukandar amagi cheng thabagi tika mamana boinam tombina lowbada pungum mulli haiba wapam chupalli maduda popagi jamna luna tina jaba marukki jamin jarubadagi agency court na ai bagi mungda kurok changduna leijaba kumba ubiki awatpam leitana lekha tabadagi tofong khangduna mareba wang malana chakiduna aeroplangi ambulance changlubadagi halaklaga thabaki damak raj sarkar da aidate thaduna kangpopi PWD dispensary da leng da pharmacy sama oina thamiki มีพุ่งคุดิ้งละangam ba seba tawduna jibon oikhi kangpopi da lainingai madaugi mingda patra ma laki patra dugi samlapa maromdi nanai tolabana langsin bada thangadaure laibak thiman khibadagi ngauduna sankalpa ma tawthokure mapok simagi imphal da tararoi jingnung manung asida punsi asim asum manoi da ke lepkane iku ipungo amadi sanika anina ibe mama macha ani bu konbirakpagi konbirakpa adum konbinaba dandabot pranam ga konana sotokuti प्रार्थना तो हाइदने इरक पत्रगी मरोल बो आई मना मयक से न फोंदोगली ing गुंजाल लिसिंग मचापन कुंथा त्रेति दुर्गा पूजा मतमदा मसा ngamlaktabadagi apokpa jibon singo punsigi aroi batahi tangi aibna chingba wari lisang thaduna lidi taruk sumba matang jega haibasida apokpa nan lekhidrabada brita garoi basna amasing pinda jol piduna jega gi mafam tana puduna mukhagni gi matam dawduna putta mayum paiduna lengai sing thongduna thangfaminda chedoina taroi tadela koiba kuding may chuba may charak tuna matang singlon sing wai tuna ipagi masamay na puyong tuna chakalakpa matamda kasta piba matam tuna pire masa pumba pungtung tuna kon kre ay bana kapna wangkay naki adubu maki nungsibagi sakdam di thamoy da mutpangamdana leuri haiduna pawdamli tadi suba matang langgon pamai pasida mana poka daba numit ni wali nida imung dak prok changduna awaban nangkiba numitra ni thoni suba phawba dang jum duda aina duna leiba chataba jata duna changja pham tiba mama na mapa pungi sega tuklu bana jai phagani hairabada kana matana jabi ki daba amadi prok changki bada apokpa mama gi awong sana lupa na tingba mang taki aduna imung na mai puduna idau ithongin dan lepa angoi hai badagi samji khaina ba taki ba ai goi imai ja ahum na idau sangai da chat pata de adubu iyambadi iben na leu bani hai dina sikhang khang badagi ima ja school sawai jam leirak mai ba lekai da leiba panthong jum dan laki hai dina pawdam piri nipan suba matang ngakpa haibasida mana sansaduna chaningai matamda mayamana chai ahum surakpa matamda mayamana phaijom mapan amuba gumbana chanba amana chepo ingoi tauba aduga miyai chalabi nupi amana hanet angauba manjunaba ama chetpa inapi angauba manjunaba amana mako kunduna ginba hadane ningsingli ai bagi ningsing bagi sakti si jamna thawi mana kalenda poklaga berada khongham bagi laijata mayamba amadi maben nongmanini kanaraga lekhida basi tahi jamaglaba matamda mayamba amadi maben ni ai basi khaglapani haini angang wani ni da mama na computer laga phakta kaboga baba khara thamlamba sumang na lamkunu na khongba pura phaga da bagi kanna honaba abok sing amana pharunu thadoko haina chingba ai bunan jamna phadana ningsing bagi mamina matta chithadana tamni kista kumlising amajapan kunda ucho primary pass taduna Johnston Avenue School da mingjan bagabada school ki headmaster Mr. G.C College leite haiduna bilatagi oda amati haibuna chingba odana tungla dineda matang kharani loina assistant headmaster oina Jamini Sundar Guna charge buduna mingjan kiba odana satra singda library ki habit thaman kiba library piduna pahan ba asina tingba wani lidi mapan su mamatang da ikoi ki jumai pa sida makoi ki jumdi da school moyang kom sawai jam leirak mai pa lekai dani aina palli madau library ki khumam di ni tai baptani kongjom lan ki mamang oiramna Maharashtra Chandra ki sana takta manau ibungo bakasana sagol handa bana Saneka jai school lakpa ni tai bata bagi lan ni malonga lamna mayo loiraga lai guru ki khumam lawbadagi laikai sitan lenglakpani haibasi khangan matang natana jung dia koi bada ai lei thaduna chitna na thambagi wapam ju mari chungna saitai แต่ในสุบมาตั้งไอ้กูยีมุ่งหายไปสิดาไอ้มันน่าสุนับปริมาดูดีไอ้กูยีมุ่งดีควายก็มันนั่นเองตัวก็มาว่างมาวันนั้นจะนี่ไม่ไอ้ใจกูยีจุ่มมามังได้อีดงชนะข้าสิ่งอามาเอกบันนิงกันนะป้าบุญชนะข้าสิ่งหุ่มเลยเด้ข้าได้อีดงสิ่งอามาสุดเดียปีอีดงชนะข้ากิมามังไว้ดับน่ะไม่บุ้งสิ่งประเดี๋ยวอามาเลยเด้ประเด็นสิ่งสิ่งมันนิ่งไว้ดับน่ะที่มาที่เบี้ยมาสิ่งอามาเลยเด้นิ่งดำมาจ้าประเด็นไม่ยุ่งประเด็นอันนี้เอาบังประเด็นอามาเราเล่นบังประเด็นอามาไอ้คุยกับกุลกะไอ้คุยไม่บังยิ่งนี่แล้วไม่บุ้งมาดิอาสมน่ะไม่บังยี่มุ่งมันที่เจ้ารักก็ปริเกิดอาศิดาอีดงชนะการส่วนมันนี้มหานาราสิงห์มานาสกิมมาสุยบุ้งมันนี้สุเรนนี้มาตั้งสิดาบริติชน่ะชุมโซไปกี้นินเทมาจ้าสิ่งชุมมาซากินมาบุ้งงักเนี่ยจัดแต่ประดับแต่บ้าอาตุกทับกระชูอาตุกอะไรมันดีนะไปแต่ประชุดาแต่มาดำน่ะลอยสังเดนนัตระกันน่ะนัตระก็อามาดับปานาดูน่ะเลยปานาบกี้คุดงจ้าบ้าพังงแต่บะมีน่ะมีเรื่องหมดดูน่ะเอาพังขังแต่บะกี้ปาโรลกุโรลสิงน่ะนายกพ่อบ่อยน่ะโจบสานาบ้าคุมตุนาบ้าสังกอลตานาบน่ะจิงบ้าสานาดูน่ะจวารีวันน่ะปุ่นสีหิงบ้าน่ะกงไกนี่อาตุน่ะนุปีกี้มาปานะมาปุ่งวันน่ะหิงบ้าน่ะนามีไฮบ้าไอ้บ้าน่ะมาตั้งบุกี้समाज की मसक मयंग से में जेली इधर चने का ऐसी नोंगमई ना पान बता कि थबक सुबह गंदा बना नरसिंह महाराज ना जुबराज उलिंगे देखकर पसरी कुजंदा लगी बा नावल गोविंद की सेवा पुना पुना पोतोन ओइखी बगी वारी ली बता नतना आई बना अंगांग उलिंगे दा इधर दगी गाँव ना मिकोप तेरे की तंपाता नंगल लोई ना बमा की हन्नी हाय बना सिंबा पल्ली अदुगा मामू तो नमे दीपामुं तो अन्य सिटी जामना की न जते makoy ani na mamit law na law to pada atuk pa madi aki baga loina na mai mi ingang ngang ni ngung da tensin mada mabien na ge het them na ting ko tok doku ning sing bagi pare ning da chetana la challi trama thoi subamatang imung gi lon cha dai ba sida ai ko gi imung manung da thaksi ka si nai na chana bana amaga ket na ba leta ba punna ma si ida wa madi ai da ani na phajana chatpa natragana mising jam da ba natraga kenna ningai misan jauh dapna jam na nungsi nana lena babung tawasi asang bam mina kita nawari li ahan mereka cawar puna madam oiduna pikling jadi gian tanah udah ya besi wareng sida di kan bangami maben na hayram ba pautak jauh mama malera ba wapa mama supani Sahitya baca ganu naya punsi ni jengai dama jenganu nami dugani Ahai dapat aganu nana tagani jahit caca fajabat mumi wani lai guru ki jatang ni khangu laiwani iben taklam gada badisi dani khak kaung isusa khanglo leng dabani lamai gumudra manga mataki wapam si jamna chumla ba wapam ni ai bana maben ni macha masuni khalu bada thamoi makalam jai mama amadi maben na thabak suri nge sega da sat lisan laga kom takba angang ni mausa oi bagi maram chat damna hitui singtoi na lajan nuna pautam ni tari tui subamatang nungai ba kumai ama hai ba sidat takel ling jogi pari nigi masak khati takla ba tunda Maharaj Virendra Kishore na kungeng lakpada maigi gari purakpa gyang tanaba jiang bachatpa mama amadi maben singna maki assembly ningthogi macha nupi sing jubraj mantri senapati hanjaba pana lakpana लाख पसिंग अमत चिथा बर लेतना जेंग बचतपा मतम मधुदा जेंग बचतपा मधुदा कारगी मैकू थोलकपा उबदा भाबुक सिंग तोंगान तोंगान बवारी सानाबगी वाफम न सिंग पौदमली कुमै लोरब मतुंग दा सामु ngawre haiduna mi pangkai takai na duna chien bagi wafam juging khina palli yang tana ba haibasi matam nugi angak pa kumai amani haiduna singtari raung do suba matang punsi ahan ba mana haibasi da Elang memlekai dan leba kabam lakpagi mandokta gorolila sana bada wadadur sabagi nungai leba togokta togai madai anina makoi marang hati laga tolak bada iman kiduna kirtuan gimaya ipau duna ega dina ta tien kiba umai humbadau umang kai toko jau to kiba matang pabung kabam lakpana lengsi laktuna lupa ama tharakpa kaya mari chumna li wadi li Angang wani punsi asi sagalak pada kalpana sakti siding na duna lantorai masih ai bagi sembat sagat pahe bagi hexing bamasan ni tara mari suba matang da awaban ng baahan bahay basida Krista Kunda Lising Machanipan Maputra Matoda, British Manipur Losi Lava Matunda, Maras Nadasingon Darada, Jubras Pungati Tiduna, Nintawapi, Zawi Aima, Sana, Maikum Mina Popa, Tuntuba, Amusanana, Turatan Mintunduna, Mintologuna, Nintawai, Mahaki Matamda, Satoni Lamda, Atoba Uanba, Amalakiba, Sandaroi Kabagi, Patamutakiba, Alaman Singna, Nong Tuplongi, my Masin Taman Bagi, Wakal Kaya Tankidaba, Taman Luraga, Satarakani, Ju Takakani, Haibagi Sinabana, Ayamba, Alaman Singna, Madame Susingu, School the Tanin Kidaba, Amayachu, Matamdu, the school Marang Kaina Lekidaba, Pungi say no my Amadi by Snow Granta, Tambada, Puning Chang the Banaro Kayana, Punung Tunaba, the War Sanaba, Sabol Tanabana Timbada, Sil Tanabi. Masana sing asida thawai jawba lamienba narol singi masing dang kalaki mafam da juari kebling khatuna sanaki ai bagi jumda su juari ama police na tanar padagi lotki maduda mabena nawo gop traga karigino nawai na migi angang bi ki haliba to chakro haiduna ahloi bagi hauna ba saurak tantoki dai bada sauraba lamienba sing aduna nongwan lona ahing da laklaga Jumai Taramba, Madame Duda, a Bagi Hajanga, Lanki Bamesa Kalum, the piece in the Haidnativa, Wadi Libat and Natana, a Sigumba, Awaba to Boxing, and I give from the talk the voice and Whitema, Isolium from the Benakunam Day. Ramanga Subamatang Sangsani Masak Kangba, Waiba Matanga Sinda, Jumai Zagrapada, to tell it behind the Kanada for the Madi Mamon, Sumpon, Pontuna Putorapa. Mamang Samoy dan Lian Kiba, Sana Poching May Jaki, the Tamoy Kaki, Punama, Puna Amata Chita than a Wadi Lili, Nongalaga Sakasebo, Maruma Pidamayana, Ataiba, Punama, Taksil Kopsil Tauraga, May the Nino, Wasamboyadu, Kajin Kodinduna, Silava, Matunda, May Tak, Jumay Tak Pahagasi, Aport Kalpani, Aduna, Jumama Tansa, the Bada, the Aduna, Ababa, Umpam Yanduna Data, Unduna Seboxing Isil. Maruk Mapida, Board Senabati, Maras Natimba, Mana Gamba Matin, Panguduna, Ta Magi Manunda, Saba Loduna, Junda, Kongtin Kihaina, Wadi Lili, Angan Wadi Yona, A Bagi Wakal the Pauki Badi, Sangsada Sinunga, Bagi Salunga Nati, Awabagi Salupsin in a haiba, Kambamudoki, Jumay Zapada, Ayawana Kangi Basilumba, Sangsadi Awaba Masapsin, Kamba Hodaki Haina, Wadi Lili. Thokchom Matang, Idong the Pan, but then I have a sida, Jumay Chakra Matunda, Atakam Lake, and Hambala, Mongi, Wang Bada, Idong the Kakumde, Adu, Guy, but then Gini, Kande, Mungai, the Gimi Kande, Awabagi Mamma, my Konga, Rabu Tony, Idong Monton Bagi Mapan, the Gijum Sabangam, haiba, even a Pongi, Jumdang Manumita, Idong Monton Badana, Zak Tamina, the Matunda. Idong na kurami, awalo itaga awaba punama, poglagani, haiduna nantabi, miluda pirana pungom jom laga, kalimata nungai taba tawirunu, Govinda dum kuram si haiduna temjinbi, idong nai, loy kumlu wachote do, nintaw kumbom sing na rubani, sinam batobla bachote do, ayam bagi sinam tok tu na topani, samay kasagol nandiyan na juming kun malaw wasu atatay tanaru bagi. Malawam Tokuna Malawani, Kangpokta, Kaputak Kangla Visichotedo, Kanglabam Tokuna, Makang Labani, Wabam Tokuna, Mawarabani, Aduda, Handaki Simadi, Tina Chopa Matinari, Ila Letana, Awabasunanga, Chopa Masulanga Munta Watoi, Mina Mayum Tabi, Misani, Haiba Mati, Topa Matarabani, Asina Aina Jam Nongmaikiba, Ikaiba, Lamai Jam Kuntratu. Asi kung mapuming nungihik na bawa pang China, Idong the Pan, but China ni haiba, ay Banawali Lili. Punsigi Saktam, Laro, Namaki Aroi, Bamatang, Isayama, Haiba Sida, ay Isayama, Haiba Sida, Nitai, ay Banamamaga, Nongpum Datalo, but I'm going to talk to the way say, Nitai Bakiti, like the Gong, Hina Sakpa Matamda. Ay gana miluda pinansin na kapiba isay dugi manunda jam na chawraba itihas ama फुमदुना लेबगी वाफम न चिंबा अइबना पल्ली नरसिंह महाराज की मजाई बुंगो निताई बाताबना निंथौ कुबम फंगम थोबदा पेबा पंडित की खुदिन थौरांगना निंथौ कुबम फंगौदबा हजारी बाक्ता लोय थाकीबा लेबांगना निंगमदना सोनकीबा थौदोकु मरिक चुमना लीली मबे नसी निताई बाताबा सनिकागी असेंग इनि खंगपदा नुंगाइबा फाउकी अइबना नहा ओरिङै मापांगन थोइना लेतिङैदा मबेन थोकी बनी मबेनगी मफमदा मिट्टी पीना श्रद्धा भक्ति कथि हाइना फोंदोक्तुना इरी मथंग अनी सुबह लारोंदा मतंग निपान का जावी मकोई सिंगदी आहान बदा एकोई समाज एकोई मतंग समाज अनी सुबदा समाज की मीटिंग अमसुंग था अहूम सुबदा समाज की शिक्षा दिखा मरी सुबदा ईसा की शिक्षा दिखा मंगा सुबदा ब्रिनाम चटपा तरुक सुबदा स्कूल दा अमु तरे सुबदा पुंची की जावलमा निपान सुबदा निगांग पने असिना चिंगबनी आहान बदा एकोई मतंग की समाज है बचिदा खिस्ता जित्रा मा सुबह शताब्दी दा भारत की इतिहास दा skip tau dah. Kontakan aku dah. Besok dan macam ni, aduh ningkau matang pala bermatung dah. Ningkau singna mari pamjaba Ram mantra aduh ni besok dan lagi kisna mantra dah dikha asuk na matang lauduna jamna patau na sanduraki pasina Ram pancuba sadapti gi besok dan mana kolak pasi ga mari segala dum cawrai kunjuba sadapti dah tu ani semua matang ikon समाज की मिथि अमसुंग थाग है बसी धर्म की मतुंगना एकोई की समाज ती हिंदू समाज में मिथि ता बामोन परेंगमा लाखी बगी गुरु की आसोन जारबदगी ओपाल अपील हाउ अनामाइना चनरंबा परिंगदा तेगोक्ता बामोन हाचिंदुना ब्राह्मण हाउ ओपाल हाउ अपील अपाल अपील हाउ अनामाइरंबदगी ब्राह्मण फुंगा अतोबा गा निंगथौ फुंगा असेंबगा राजनीति अमसुंग धर्म नीति पुंजिंदुना गुरु की आसोन जामिन नखिबगी ब्राह्मण हाउ इंतौ ब्राह्मण इंतौ हाउ अरामाइना चतरा पुनाइना लिरी चेक तरेना कंगै पुंगसिनि मचिदा मपुंग मोइना लिंगुना पालमबगी समाज की मिथि छाकिबा चेक छलाय खरसिना मसक नाइना पानकिबा इतिहास की तांका लिंगथौ सिंगना लोइलम संदोक न बहोना बदा लान तबरा चिंबा आई बना मचा खाइना ताकली औ जुम मतंग समाज की शिक्षा दिखा है मतंग सिदा आई बना चौरक मतम असी वैष्णव शिक्षा दिखा अनि पुनः चटपगी मरमदा संदोकना नै गौड़ी और वैष्णव धर्म निंथिना मसक ताकबगा लोइना धर्म असिगा मतम चुपदा थागोना दुना चबिनरिबा पुंग इसै जगोई कलादा थवाई जाउना तमनरपा असी तुबी चराइरंबा महाराज की मतमदगी हौडकलगा मार्जी गमिसिंगो नरसिंहो की थाना तक पावा तोंगान बा दुमेन पुथोकलों में हाय बना चुंबा खंगली लोइना मतम की शिक्षा दिखा हाय बसिदा गंभीर सिंह महाराज ना मणिपुर खुबम हंजिलबा मतुंगा मकोई की मचा मसु सिंगी ओइबा स्कूल अमा लिंककी असिना इहा नानबा स्कूल नि हाय ना पल्ली लेबा कोइबा स्कूल ली चंद्रकीर्ति महाराज की थाना तकता स्कूल खरा लिंकलमी खिस्तकुम लिसिंगमा चामापन कुंतरुक्ता हाई स्कूल तमक लेरमी हाइना पल्ली अदुगा परीक्षा की सेंटर ना सिलेट गवर्नमेंट हाई स्कूल दा तांगुना मिगो इतरा तुगना परीक्षा साकी हाई बने चिंबा मये चिंगना पाउदमनी मरी सुबह मतंगदा इसा की शिक्षा दिखा हाई बसिददी आई बना लानाई हतिंग न खिबसिंग परिंग नाइ न फोंगोक्पा उबा फंगी करमना लाइक तंबा होरकिबा विद्यारंभगी मओ मतौ लाइक मतमदी स्कूल काबदा सेप मओ पेतिगु स्कूल की मिंग चनबा स्कूल की फिबम परीक्षा थाबना चिंबा मओ मतौ कुबना लीरी मंगा सुबह मतंगदा सिबिन बिनाम चटपा हाइबसिदा बिंद्राबोन चटपगी वापमनी मसिदा अपा बसिंदा लंकोई वारी अमगी चपचाबा महाउ पिबंगमी स्कूल की परीक्षा थाबा लोइबगा आइसु चकनी हाइदुना मबेन नमदि मजौगी तुंगिंदुना पोरे उदुना खोंग गाड़ी न खोंगसा लगा मणिपुर की कीरा बचिंजाव कया लांथोक लगा लखीपुर जौरकी बा स्कूल दा अमु हाइबसिदा स्कूल दा लाइक तमिंगै हाफ छुट्टी मतमदा उपुल चाइदुन सानाबा चेंजोंग चोंगबा मची मनाव सानाबा कयेन सानाबा असिदा नुंगाई की मिकुप तो आई बना फजन थारी aduga Gaudiya Vaishnava Dharma ki samaj oibana amang asiangi kan akan niti niyom sahib amadi Bengali singna achauba pham pairaga Manipuri singunam makha thana len mana chingba Manipuri singgi dharma datina thaja bana Manipuri singgi pungning phatha bangamba matam dugi harau kumai holi sanaba dol punima thabal chongba chauchang koi bana chingba ningting na thai mohali umang ama sing moirang kom matau karamna maming thon ki bana haiba place name lejangi masa gadu suguli tane chuma matang punsingi jawal ama haiba sida ai bagi nungsirba maru ibo tombina dityo seni tamlingai khongam bagi laitanna laki dabda thamui kai ki mamatang jai ki porika loi ki pawba moirang thiam ango bada angka tambagi wapam chupani nimno primary pass school porika haiba sida satar biti phangnaba mairoi mana jai ani lupa ani tongduna phangguna chatpa aduga oda singna satra aduna percentage of the scholarship ka free sip ka phangba tolok kana chade increment da mangdong na piba tingbagi wapam juniti na palli aduga matungda oda lekba haiba wani ki makha chadai oda bubu ni junda leiraga lairai su tamba satra amadi oda ga leina ba mari me china palli ningsing ni haiba sidana DM college da Manipuri masangi head oina